She said it like she was ordering dinner. Do not be pathetic. I am going back to Tyler. I never really loved you. Her face did not even twitch. No guilt. No shame. Just that bored look you see when someone is ready for the check. 15 years. 15 years of me backing her all the way through law school. I co-signed the loan when nobody else would touch it. I sat in court with her through that 3-month circus of a custody fight with her ex. I ran the numbers on 2 failed limited liability companies she dreamed up after brunch with her Pilates friends. I built the QuickBooks files. I filed the taxes. I kept the lights on while she chased one dopamine hit fantasy after another. And I never raised my voice. Not once. So when she dropped that line, cold and rehearsed, I did not argue. I did not yell. I did not throw a glass or fall to my knees like she probably pictured. I just stood there looking at her while the last piece of the puzzle slid into place in my head. Tyler, the ex, the one with dice tattooed on his neck and a suspended real estate license. The guy she called toxic to anyone who would listen, but still kept photos of tucked behind her law books. The man she swore almost ruined her. Cute. I walked into the hallway, slipped on my shoes, opened the filing cabinet by the laundry closet, bottom drawer, and pulled out a manila envelope labeled Oak Ridge Holdings. No need to pack. Everything important had already moved. She barely glanced up from her wine. I said, "Do not wait up." I could not help myself. At the Marriott downtown, the night clerk offered me a complimentary drink ticket. I passed. I turned on the bedside lamp, set the envelope down, and pulled out the prepaid phone I had not touched in 8 years. The number was still scrawled inside the back cover in permanent marker. I dialed. The voice that answered sounded like gravel through static. "Took you long enough." "It is done," I said. "Sign everything. Timestamp it today. You remember the trigger clause?" He chuckled like I had asked whether gravity still works. Been waiting. When I hung up, I leaned back and finally let out a breath. Not relief. Not sadness. Clarity. People say betrayal feels like getting stabbed. It does not. It feels like a click, a deadbolt sliding shut in your chest. If you are still with me, do me a favor and subscribe. I mean it. More than 90% of folks hear these stories and forget to hit that little button. It helps us keep telling them, especially ones like this, where every quiet moment had a job to do. She thought I would come crawling back. She figured I would be at the hotel bar with an overpriced glass of scotch, trying to make sense of it. I was not heartbroken. I was 10 steps ahead. Back at our place, Jessica topped off her red wine, probably patting herself on the back for finally telling the truth. She did not realize that truth, tossed out over leftover Thai food, had just detonated a legal structure she never bothered to read. She thought she left a broken man on the couch. What she really did was start a clock on something older, colder, and a lot more precise than she ever imagined. The call came at 8:07 a.m. Tom never called that early. The man treated mornings like a medieval curse. He was not vertical before 9 unless someone was dead or missing. "Listen," he said without a hello, his voice already half an octave higher than usual. "What did you sign yesterday?" I was in the little cafe attached to the Marriott, stirring my black coffee like I had all the time in the world. "Morning, Tom. You are going to need to be more specific." "The joint account? The house deed? The retirement fund? What in the world did you sign?" I took a slow sip and leaned back in the booth. "Check your inbox. Your assistant, the one you still have not fired, carbon copied you by mistake. You should see 3 portable document format files with timestamps." Silence. Then the muffled clatter of keys and that low hum people make when they are reading something they never expected to see in their lifetime. I could picture Tom's face. Eyebrows up, lips pulled into that sour little purse he gets when a junior associate catches what he missed. First file, title transfer. The house Jessica loved to parade as the trophy for surviving the war years was no longer in her name. It now belonged to Horizon District Holdings, Limited Liability Company. Second file, trust amendment. The family trust Jessica and I set up 5 years ago, mostly symbolic, or so she thought, now had a clause triggered by voluntary departure from marital cohabitation with intent to re-establish prior romantic arrangements. Plain English? She left for Tyler. I made it official. Third file, beneficiary reassignment. My 401k, 2 individual retirement accounts, and the brokerage account tied to the business moved into a new structure with a conditional clause that activated when Jessica declared separation in writing, which she did. The text was time-stamped, saved, and submitted. Tom finally found his voice, lower now. She had no idea, did she? I smiled just a little. She signed the first set of papers in your kitchen, Tom. You were standing right there. Page 17 of the Mason binder. Remember? She was in a hurry to make her spa appointment. That was 8 years back. And she used the same handwriting on every update after that. You know how that plays in court, right? Tom did not answer. She kept calling me predictable, I said, sliding my plate away. She never stopped to think about how predictable men protect themselves. The line went quiet again, but it was not silence. I could hear the gears turning in Tom's head. Fast, desperate, rolling back through all the offhand comments and smug holiday dinners. Tom always figured I was too careful to be ambitious. Turns out that caution had teeth. You are not taking everything, are you? He asked at last, and there was something new in his voice. Uncertainty. I am not taking anything, I said, flat as a table. She gave it up. I filed the paperwork. You planned this. I stood, dropped a $10 tip on the table, and checked my watch. Tom, you were a corporate litigator for 30 years. If a guy walks out with nothing but a manila envelope, maybe ask yourself why he did not bring a suitcase. He let out a breath that almost sounded like a wheeze. What are you going to do next? I do not know yet, I said. But if I were you, I would make sure she does not try to kick down any doors today. The deed transfer hit the public record at midnight. Even the utilities are in the name of Horizon District Holdings, limited liability company now. I hung up before he could respond, slid the phone back into my coat, and headed toward the revolving door. Sunlight flashed off the polished lobby floor. The trap was not improvised. It was signed, notarized, dated, and now it was live. Later that morning, Jessica hit Tom's building like a storm front. She threw the door open so hard the brass handle smacked the wall. The receptionist flinched. Jessica did not even look over. "Where is Walter?" she snapped, marching past the desk like she owned the place. She liked to tell people she practically did. She had sent half her divorced and newly liberated book club to this firm. She thought loyalty points counted in the real world. Walter, estate attorney, early 60s, buttoned up, soft-spoken, the kind of man who wears a sweater vest without irony, was already on his feet. He adjusted his glasses and motioned to the chair across from him. "Jessica, what is this?" she barked, throwing a stack of printed pages onto his desk. "My father says he transferred the house. The retirement accounts. What in the world is going on?" Walter opened the folder like it was any other Tuesday. He scanned the first page, nodded once, then turned to a locked cabinet behind him. He slid out a labeled file box and pulled a thick legal packet she had not seen in close to a decade. "Do you remember signing this?" he asked, mild as a librarian, sliding it across. She scoffed. "Yes, years ago. That was just the mortgage refinance paperwork, right?" He did not smile. Page 17. "What?" He flipped through with practiced fingers and tapped his pen on a paragraph. She squinted at the fine print, blinked, and leaned in. "Voluntary separation with intent to cohabitate elsewhere shall activate conditional revocation of marital property claim, including but not limited to deed access, pension beneficiary status, and spousal trust entitlements." Her jaw clicked shut. No, this was not in the draft you sent me. I would have seen this." Walter folded his hands. "It was in the draft your father reviewed. I emailed both of you twice to confirm. You replied with, 'All good. Just sign and file.'" He turned his monitor so she could see. There was the email thread. Her quick green light reply. Even the little smiling face. "But it was not explained," she said, her voice going thin. "You should have told me." "You waived explanatory counsel in writing," Walter said, still calm. Page 2. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Walter softened his tone. "Jessica, you never asked what would happen if you left the marriage. You only asked what would happen if he did." "I thought he would never." She cut herself off. Even now, pride tripped over truth. "Most couples assume a single story," Walter said with a small sigh. "You assumed he would be the one to break it. You did not study what you were actually signing. That is not illegal. It is just unfortunate." Jessica stood up, shaking her head like she could rattle the facts loose. "This is ridiculous. This is insane. I want it nullified." "You can try," he said evenly. "But the clause has already been triggered. Your admission about going back to Tyler meets the conditions. In fact, I believe you said, 'I am going back to Tyler,' word for word." Color rose in her cheeks. So now what? I am out. I just lose everything? No, he said. You still have your law license, your practice, your car, and the condominium that is in your name. And, he added gently, the freedom you wanted. She left without another word. This time her heels did not sound like confidence. They sounded like echoes in an empty hallway. From what I heard later, and from the messages and calls that followed, her steps dragged a little, off balance, like she was not sure where she was headed anymore. In the hallway, the receptionist looked up, nervous. Jessica did not look back. At the elevator, she jabbed the button twice, then 3 times, like pressing harder could undo the legal language that had just chewed through her safety net. I had not yelled. I had not begged. I had not even left a note. I left a clause. She signed it with a smile years ago, back when she thought men like me never play the long game. Turns out this one does. The worst agreements are the ones you never bother to read. Tyler opened his door shirtless, holding a mug that said, "Number 1 Dad." Even though everyone knows he hardly sees his kid. The hallway in his building smelled like reheated chicken tenders and weed. She had to step over a pizza box to get inside. At first, she did not even see the place, because her nerves were lit up. Lipstick perfect, heels sharp, but her breathing gave her away. She pushed past him without asking. "Did you know?" she snapped, pacing like a caged animal. "About the house, the accounts, everything." He moved it all. Tyler shut the door and leaned on it, scratching his jaw. "What are you talking about?" Mark moved the deed into some shell company. "The retirement stuff, too. He gutted everything. I thought." "What? That he would let you walk out and take half his spine with you?" Tyler chuckled, wandered to the kitchen, and poured stale coffee from a cracked pot. "You left a guy who irons his socks. That man keeps a contingency plan next to his breakfast." "This is not funny, Tyler." Her purse was still hanging off her elbow. "I need your help." He raised an eyebrow and waved a hand around the condo. "With what? Mortgage law? I used to be a realtor 10 years ago. I lost my license when I filed for bankruptcy and forgot to disclose an ethics complaint. You know this." She blinked at him. "So you cannot do anything?" "Not unless you want me to sublet this place. It is rent-controlled." He took a sip and winced. Barely. The condo was smaller than she remembered. 3 years ago, when she last came over, she did not clock the peeling laminate or the nicotine-yellow ceiling fan. Back then it was the thrill, the nostalgia, that dumb daydream about what could have been if they had not been so young and reckless. She told herself Tyler had grown up. But with the facts biting at her heels, and my quiet not giving her anything to push against, she started to see it. Tyler was the same as ever, a crash in progress with biceps. She stepped closer, voice sharp. "I need you to tell the court something. Say Mark forced me out. Say he pressured me. Say it was not my choice." His eyes actually widened for a beat. Then he laughed, full belly, bent over the counter, wheezing. "Oh my God, Jess. You still think I would lie for you?" "You owe me," she hissed. "For what?" he said, straightening up. "For breaking up with me? For showing up here after disappearing for years? For pretending I did not exist every time Mark was in the room?" He took another sip and looked her in the eye. "Also, minor detail. I cheated on you with your sister. You remember that, right?" She froze. He kept going. "She was pretty cool about it, honestly. Thought we might make a decent couple. We did not." She slapped him. Open palm. Full sting. His head barely moved. He did not swing back. He did not even flinch. He just stood there like a man used to being the mistake, not the solution. "Go home," he said at last, tossing the mug into the sink. "Or wherever you live now. Sounds like that list got shorter." "I left everything for you." "No," he said. "You left everything because you thought someone better was waiting. You just picked the wrong fantasy." She stormed out. The elevator smelled like mildew and loneliness. In the scratched metal doors, her reflection looked less like a wronged wife and more like someone who ran face first into the punchline of her own story. She did not cry. Not yet. But the humiliation sat in her throat like a pill she could not swallow. Tyler was not going to fix anything. He could not. He was never the plan, just the excuse. Now she did not have a plan at all. Only a cold wind at her back and a future that looked like a locked door with my signature welded across it. Later, she pulled into our driveway like she still belonged there. She gripped the wheel and stared at the front of the house. White columns, clean brick, the hydrangeas she loved blooming like nothing had changed. For a second, She convinced herself it was all still hers. That the scene at Tyler's was a glitch in a plan she could still save. It was not. The deed transfer was recorded at midnight. Even the utilities Red Horizon District Holdings, Limited Liability Company. She talked herself into believing my quiet was just pettiness, not a plan. She punched the garage code. Nothing. Tried again, slower, listening for the beeps. Red light. She pressed it a third time, harder. Same red eye. Her heart did not speed up. It skipped. Because she knew me. I am methodical. I would not change a code unless something bigger had already moved. She got out and walked to the front door. Tried her key. It did not fit. For half a second she told herself maybe the lock was sticky, maybe something was bent. But the brass gleamed in the sun. Brand new hardware. She rang the bell. Nothing. Rang it again and waited. The street was quiet. Midweek suburbia. Trimmed lawns. Stuffed mailboxes. Everyone at work. No witnesses. No helpers. She called the non-emergency line. 20 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. She stood with her arms crossed and her jaw set like a woman about to fight for what is hers. "Ma'am," the officer said, polite as can be, stepping out of the cruiser. He looked 28 or so. Soft eyes. No ring on his finger. "You said you were locked out of your own home?" "Yes," she snapped. "My husband changed the locks without telling me. That is illegal." "All right. Do you have identification?" She handed it over. He checked it, then pulled up a property database on his tablet. "I can show you old bank statements and utility bills," she said, already scrolling her photo roll for screenshots. "I have lived here for 15 years. "I believe you," he said gently. "Give me a moment." He stepped away, tapping and scrolling, then stopped. His brow tightened. "Ma'am," he said, coming back. "According to the most recent title update, this property is owned by Horizon District Holdings, Limited Liability Company, effective 3 days ago." "That is his company," she hissed. "Regardless, it is listed as the owner of record. I live here." "Actually," he said carefully, "you do not. The utility registrations and the mail forwarding both show a change in primary residence. And there is a clause." She blinked. "A clause in what?" He turned the tablet so she could see. There it was, attached to the deed transfer, public and notarized. Clause 3.4, he read. "In the event of voluntary spousal separation with intent to relocate, prior cohabitation rights are revoked in accordance with Revocable Trust Amendment 2B. Heat rose in her chest. That is not real. That cannot be enforceable. "I am not taking sides," the officer said, apologetic more than stern. "This is not a landlord-tenant case. It is civil. According to the filings, you left voluntarily. You were not evicted, which means, legally, this is not your home right now. You are telling me I cannot go inside." He paused. "If you try, he could file trespassing charges." She stared at him. Her mouth opened, then nothing came out. Behind her, the house stood indifferent. Blinds drawn. Porch swept. The potted lavender still in the corner where she set it 2 springs ago. None of it knew her anymore. None of it opened. "Ma'am," the officer added softly. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She nodded, though she did not. He handed back her identification, gave a small nod, and returned to his car. No drama. No shouting. Just clean paperwork cutting her out like a stencil. She sat on the front steps and ignored the heat coming through the stone. Cars passed. A neighbor waved. She lifted a hand without thinking, then let it drop. They were not waving at her. Her phone buzzed. Junk mail. She muted it and slid the phone into her purse. She was not crying. Not yet. But hairline cracks had started. She was no longer a wife in practice. No longer in control. No longer a resident of the place she decorated, scrubbed, defended, and pretended would last. All that was left was the sound of the wind brushing a door that would not open for her again. The restaurant was old money quiet. White tablecloths, real candles, and waiters who floated instead of walking. I arrived early, like always, and took the booth by the window. I ordered water, still, and nothing else. At 12:06 in the afternoon, Tom walked in with his hair parted sharp, blazer pressed, shoes shined to within an inch of their lives. He had the decency to look uneasy. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as he slid into the booth across from me. "I know this is awkward." I gave a small nod. No smile. A waiter appeared and poured Tom a glass of Cabernet without asking. I did not look at the menu. The quiet stretched. The kind that turns every second into a question about whether a man is begging or bargaining. Tom finally spoke. I owe you an apology. I raised an eyebrow, said nothing. Not just for Jessica, he went on, rolling the wine in his glass, but not tasting it. For how I treated you. For assuming you were mild. Harmless. I thought you were just a background husband. Supportive. Predictable. Supportive, I said, dry as sandpaper. It was the first word I had offered. He breathed out. That was not meant as a compliment, was it? No. The waiter returned to take orders. I declined. Tom asked for the salmon, then turned back to me. I misjudged you, he said. That part is clear. I stayed easy in my seat and let Tom talk. But we are here now, he said, voice measured. We both know this does not need to go any further. I tilted my head, a little amused. You think this is escalation? He slid a folder across the table. Heavy bond paper, law firm letterhead drafts. I have a proposal, he said. Quiet resolution. She gives up any fight over the trust. You release a slice of the brokerage funds. No media. No discovery. Everyone walks away. I did not reach for it. I just looked at the thing like it was a dream I had already had, one where I knew the ending. You are trying to put out a house that is already ash, I said. Tom straightened his shoulders. You do not want this to get ugly, Mark. Whatever she has done, she is still the woman from your last 15 years. Public embarrassment. Court mudslinging. That will not help anyone. I let out one small laugh with no humor in it. You think this is about embarrassment? I opened the folder and read in silence. Partial return of assets, a mutual gag order, a request for non-disclosure on the limited liability company transfers, and mediation instead of litigation. I closed it gently and slid it back. She burned 15 years, I said. I am not handing her the matchbox too. Tom blinked. I kept my voice low and sharp. She walked out like she was switching cereal brands. She told me she never loved me and tried to keep the bowl. And now you want to call that diplomacy? I leaned in a little. You raised a woman who thinks consequences are optional. They are not. Tom sat back, actually rattled. This is not who I thought you were. I know, I said. That is why it worked. Silence again. This time, he did not have words to fill it. The waiter set down his salmon. Tom waved it away. I stood, tucked a $50 bill under my water glass, and looked him in the eye. If she wants closure, she can try calling the number she blocked 5 years ago. I will not answer, but the ring will sound familiar. I walked out. Tom did not touch the salmon. He did not call after me. He sat there under soft candlelight, breathing the quiet smell of a deal that died on the table. Jessica showed up 10 minutes late to her lawyer's office in big sunglasses and that face people practice in mirrors. Cool, controlled, no cracks. It barely held. She did not sit right away. She dropped her handbag like a microphone, crossed her arms, and said, Tell me you found a loophole. Her attorney, Diane, mid-50s, pinstriped suit, killer in a courtroom but running on low sleep, folded her hands. Jessica, sit. Then, to me, with a nod because I was there to hear it, please. Jessica sat. Diane took a breath and slid one sheet across the table. This is not just about the house or the pension or the joint account. Jessica frowned. Okay, then what is it? This is about the deal, Diane said. The real one. I do not follow. Diane opened a folder labeled Gideon Acquisitions, Preliminary Draft. Inside, a spreadsheet packed with valuations, equity splits, and signatures Jessica did not recognize. Mark's original business loan, Diane said, looking at me and then back to Jessica, the one used to secure the house, the down payment, the renovations, the solar upgrade you loved showing off. That was not personal money. It was structured through Oak Ridge Holdings. I know that is the limited liability company he used as a shield, right? Jessica said. Diane lifted a hand. Oak Ridge Holdings was not only a shield. It was also the parent for Bridgeview Tier Capital. Jessica blinked. His side project. His main project. The app he built during the pandemic. The one you called nerdy and too niche. She glanced at me. He never bragged about it because he did not need to. He just kept building. Diane pushed over another page. Gideon Group is calling it a quiet payments pipeline, regulatory dashboards, and data rails for small credit unions. He signed a silent acquisition letter with Gideon 8 months ago. $12 million in stock and cash. Jessica's throat went dry. No, that is not possible. That was his side thing. It does not even turn a profit. Not yet. Diane said. Gideon is buying infrastructure, not income. And because you voluntarily gave up your marital claim on the trust that owns Oak Ridge Holdings, thanks to that clause you did not read, you have no stake in the sale. Jessica's voice cracked. But the house was part of the company. It was listed under Oak Ridge. Exactly, Diane said. Which means the home's value was wrapped into the equity package. You did not just lose the address, Jessica. You helped fund a $12 million exit and walked away with zero. The room went quiet. Diane did not look smug. She looked like a doctor breaking bad news. Calm, clinical, final. I can fight this, Jessica whispered, more to herself. We can argue duress, misrepresentation, lack of disclosure. No judge will buy that, Diane said. You signed every update and every amendment. You co-signed the limited liability company filings 5 years ago and never asked what sat inside them. You agreed to the structure. Your initials are all over it. Some filings came from your work email. I thought it was just paperwork, Jessica said, voice small. It was, Diane said. The kind that counts. Jessica leaned back. The sunglasses came off. Mascara smudged at the edges. The ironed version of herself loosening at the collar. He tricked me. No, Diane said, steady. He prepared. A long quiet settled over the room. Jessica finally said, I gave him 15 years. Diane did not flinch. And he gave you paperwork. You just did not read it. Jessica stared through Diane, eyes fixed on the wall. She was not crying. She was somewhere else. She had not only lost a house or a husband. She had walked away from a careful, silent stake in something real and growing. Because she thought control lived in emotion, in drama, in the walkout. She was wrong. Control was in ink, in clauses, in timestamps. I had not left quietly. I had left completely. The courtroom was small, probate, with pews, the low buzz of an old fluorescent that should have been changed 10 years ago. To Jessica, it might as well have been a stadium. Every cough bounced. Every shuffle sounded like judgment. She wore a muted gray dress she figured would read as professional and cooperative. It looked tight across her ribs. I sat 2 rows ahead with my attorney and did not turn around. The judge was wiry, salt and pepper hair, bifocals that made him look more like a professor than a bench officer. He flipped through a thick folder the clerk handed up, page after page. Jessica's lawyer leaned in and whispered, routine trust clarification. No surprises. Even as she said it, she did not sound sure. My attorney stood, calm, precise, like he was laying a blade on a whetstone. Your Honor, before addressing Mrs. Hawkins's objections to the trust, we would like to move Exhibit B into the record. A single envelope, hand-delivered, sealed with a numbered red sticker. The judge opened it. Jessica's shoulders stiffened. Inside were copies, dozens, clean, tabbed, indexed, color-coded. Receipts not just from restaurants or gas stations, but boutique shops in Savannah. Concert tickets for bands I never liked. Hotel charges on weekends. She said she was at women's retreats. A $2,800 watch purchased 3 years ago, in Tyler's size, with a handwritten note. You make me feel 22 again. My attorney did not read the note aloud. He did not need to. He let the paper speak. We believe these records, obtained legally through forensic review of joint account activity, are material to the petitioner's knowledge and use of marital resources. Jessica's mouth opened, but no words came. Her lawyer found a thread. Your Honor, these items were not part of initial disclosures because they were not required. My attorney stepped in. Mr. Hawkins did not contest distribution. But now that Mrs. Hawkins seeks to unwind the trust transfer, her spending and representations are relevant. The judge lifted one page, then another, then stopped. $1,486 for a massage therapy package, he read. He looked over the details. Paid from a joint account. Message attached, for a rough week. I miss you already. He looked up at me. Mr. Hawkins, was this addressed to you? I turned in my seat for the first time. No, Your Honor. It was for a man named Tyler, her former partner. I did not raise my voice. I did not aim a finger. The room had already shifted. Behind Jessica, her father sat like a statue. He did not speak, did not move, did not even blink. He did not look at her, either. He stared at the floor. The judge closed the file. Mrs. Hawkins, do you have a rebuttal? She stared at him. Her lips parted. Nothing. A full beat passed. Then another. There is no rebuttal, Diane said quietly, more to her client than to the court. Jessica had no plan. Her moves were all heat, anger, regret, entitlement. I had spent years doing the opposite. I did not throw scenes or demand apologies when I found those receipts. I documented. I waited. Now I let the paper talk. Her shame did not arrive as gasps or outbursts. It came as the soft rustle of documents sliding into the record. It lived in the way her own lawyer hesitated before touching her shoulder, and in her father keeping his gaze glued to the wood grain like she was already a stranger. This was not just a loss. It was exposure. Exposure leaves you with nothing to say. Later, the house looked smaller. Not the walls or the roof. Those were the same. The air had changed. That old echo of her voice had turned to static. Jessica sat in her car across the street with the engine running. The hydrangeas were still blooming. The porch light blinked on as dusk moved in. The curtains were new, clean white linen, not the slate gray she once insisted made everything feel more expensive. What hit her was not the new curtains. It was the plaque I had set into the brick above the mailbox. Clean serif letters etched into dark metal, in memory of perseverance, and the quiet that built everything. She blinked. It was not just a quote. It was a message. She knew it. Perseverance. That was me in all the quiet hours she waved off. Silence. That was not the absence of words. That was the tool. I did not need to speak when paper could. She stepped out and stood on the sidewalk. Even the sound of her heels felt wrong, like she was trying to play a part she had already lost. There were people inside now, young faces, easy smiles, voices mid-conversation. A man in uniform carried a tray of paper plates from the kitchen. Laughter drifted from the backyard. Community. Motion. Purpose. That was the moment it landed. I had not only moved on. I had turned the place into something that worked. The house she used to parade as a trophy was no longer a display case. It was shelter. Not for me. For others. I had folded it into a nonprofit I set up quietly under a name she had never heard until that second. Stillhouse Foundation for Returning Veterans. She was not angry. Anger gives you something to do. This was airless. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to my name, Mark H., and tapped. 1 ring. 2. Then the click. My voicemail came on, steady, not mean. If this is about what you lost, consider what you gave away. Beep. She did not leave a message. What would she even say? That she did not mean what she said the night she walked out? She had said it clear enough to guide my next steps. Convictions come with receipts. She got back in her car and sat there with both hands on the wheel, staring at a home she could still describe down to the paint undertones, and that she would never enter again. The man who once waited up while she recharged at yoga retreats was now building a home for people who needed one. He did not need her approval. He did not need her input. He did not need permission. I did not slam a door. I just did not open it. Exactly 1 year to the day. She knew because her phone still carried the calendar event. Meditation retreat with Tyler. She had typed it like a joke back then. Clever, dangerous, alive. Now it was a timestamp with no sense of humor. A soft knock at her condo door. She opened it expecting a box from some subscription she kept forgetting to cancel. Instead, it was Tom. He did not ask to come in. He held out a thin envelope. No return address. No name. Just her first initial in block letters she had not seen in over a year. He did not say a word. He handed it to her and walked back toward the elevator. She closed the door and stood there. For a second, she did not want to open it. Then she did. Inside was a photo. I was in front of a modern craftsman-style house, all clean lines and warm light. My arm was around a woman, late 30s, calm smile, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Beside us stood 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The boy had a toy plane frozen mid-launch. The girl hung on my leg like it was the safest place she knew. None of them were mine by blood. It did not matter. I looked happy, not the staged grin she used to post after scolding a waiter about lemon in her water. Quite happy. Settled. On the back, in my handwriting, 1 line. You said you never really loved me. I made sure I believed you. She folded the photo slowly. No tears. Not because she felt nothing, but because there was nothing left to give the grief. Grief means you lost something. This was different. This was the truth that none of it had ever been hers to hold. Not the house, not the plan, not even the man. She had not only left me, she taught me to trust her worst words. I listened. Completely. Somewhere else, I was loving someone else's kids in a house with no echoes of her voice and no pictures of our trips, no weight from our history. She sat on the edge of her bed and looked around. The condo was clean, minimal, cold. The only sound was the fridge humming on the other side of the wall. No laughter, no footsteps, just still air and a framed law degree she barely remembered applying for. She did not pick up the phone. She did not write a message. There was nothing left to fix. No door left to knock on. The big ending she used to imagine, tears, apologies, a reconciliation scene, never showed. What came was final. It did not shout. It just was. I built a life without her, not out of anger, not to prove a point. In peace. And Jessica, after all that drama, all those declarations, all that certainty that she was the center of every orbit, was not even a page in this chapter. Just a folded photo, a sentence, and a quiet that would not answer.